Hello, friends, and welcome to the Iron Sharpens Iron Bible Study Podcast. We're in a short series called StormProof as we look to the book of Proverbs to see what we can do to help prepare our lives for difficulties before they come. One of the key points we observed in one of our earlier lessons is that God has to convince us that we need wisdom. I noted in one of the earlier episodes that the first 9 chapters of Proverbs have a basic intent of convincing people to seek wisdom. The way we think is right will not help us to prepare for life's hardship. God's wisdom is necessary if we are going to live skillfully, insightfully, and successfully before God in this world. The primary message of the Proverbs opening is that life begins with God as your foundation. Without God as your foundation, you cannot see life correctly. The second half of Proverbs 1 taught us 3 preparations that we looked at last week. And the first was listen to your parents because they have experience. They have experience that you yourself don't have. Second is to remove yourself from friend circles who are leading you to do wrong. And you will save your life by doing this. Um, and the last one we looked at was wisdom is like insurance. You need to have it before disaster comes for it to be useful in your life. Proverbs 2 is kind of a template for the instructions that are found in chapters 3 through 9. Chapter 2 stands as an important overview to teach us what wisdom can do for us. Proverbs 2 is going to teach us 3 key benefits that come from the work of wisdom in your life. So let's open our Bibles to Proverbs chapter 2, and we're going to look at verses 1 through 4 to begin with. And it says, "My son, if you will receive my words and treasure my commandments within you, make your ear attentive to wisdom, incline your heart to understanding. For if you cry for discernment, lift your voice for understanding. If you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures." Um, I'd like for you to look at all of the conditional statements that are made just in the first 4 verses of Proverbs 2. Look at verses 1 and 2. It says, "If you receive my word and treasure my commands within you, listening closely to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding." Think about the first picture given to us. We must be a people who want wisdom and understanding. We must be a people who receive God's teaching and treasure them up in us. And then look at the next picture in verse 3. It says, "If you call out for insight and understanding," we're pictured as a people who want wisdom desperately. And then look at verse 4. It says, "If you will seek it like silver and search for it like hidden treasure." What is God telling us? You have to want wisdom to get wisdom. But if you'll notice that it's far more than just saying that we want wisdom and insight. You have to really want it. You have to want it like wanting the wealth from hidden treasures. We must place on wisdom the high value that is in it. Wisdom is considered so valuable that other pursuits are considered secondary. So there are 3 pictures of necessary seeking. If you receive my words, if you call out for insight, and if you will seek wisdom like silver, then you will have God and his help. Now let's look ahead here to verses 5 and 8. It says, "Then you will discern the fear of the Lord and discover the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, and he preserves the way of his godly ones." If you will get real with God, then you will have results with God. If you will seek God's wisdom, then you'll understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. If you really seek God, God will give you understanding. How can God do this? Look at verse 6. The Lord can do this because he's the one that gives wisdom. It is from his mouth that knowledge and understanding come to us. The Lord stores up sound wisdom for the upright. The Lord is a shield to those who walk with integrity. If you pursue God, then God has rewards for you. If you seek him and his wisdom like great wealth, then God will give you understanding and knowledge. Then, then God will give you sound wisdom and success. Then God will be your shield for life. Then God will watch over our ways. Um, in short, if we will get serious with God, he can get to work in our lives. What's the problem? The problem is that we typically don't get serious with God. The problem is that we typically do not seek him like great treasure. The problem is that we don't typically call out for his wisdom and give our hearts to understand him and his ways. God is simply not our burning priority. We don't meet the conditions given in the first 4 verses, so we don't see the results that are promised in the next 4. Let's look at verses 9 through 11. It says, "Then you will discern righteousness and justice and equity and every good course. For wisdom will enter your heart and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will guard you. Understanding will watch over you." Now listen to the result that comes from pursuing God and his wisdom in verses 9 through 11. Then you will understand justice and righteousness and equity. Wisdom will come into your heart. Knowledge will be pleasant to you. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you. God is telling us that he will change your life. You will not only have wisdom and knowledge and understanding, but God's wisdom will change you. Look again at verse 9. You will understand every good path. God's wisdom will change how you live. It will change how you think. It'll change everything about you. Pursue God if you want change in your life. Pursue God if you want a different life. Pursue God if you want to know the right way to go. Pursue God if you want to have understanding for life. Pursue God if you want God watching over your ways. We have to get real with God if we are going to see any life transformation. One of the big transformations that God is offering is rescue. God is offering safety for life. Look at verses 12 through 22 and notice that there are 3 pictures of safety that God is offering for our lives. And I'm kind of getting a bit ahead of myself here. We're gonna bite off 12 through 15, and eventually we're gonna get down to 22. But starting in verse 12, it says, "To deliver you from the way of evil, from the man who speaks perverse things, from those who leave the paths of uprightness to walk in the ways of darkness, who delight in doing evil and rejoice in the perversity of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways." The first picture of rescue is that God will keep us safe from wicked men. In verse 12, God says that he will deliver you from the way of evil and from people with wicked words. God will keep you from people who rejoice in doing evil and who delight in perverseness. Um, God's wisdom will allow you to see through their words. God's wisdom will keep you from listening to their perversity. Um, you'll see the traps and you won't fall into them. You will see the harm in their ways and you're not going to follow. Verses 16 through 19 says, "To deliver you from the strange woman, from the adulteress who flatters with her words, that leaves the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, uh, and her tracks lead to the dead. None who go to her return again, nor do they reach the paths of life." The second picture that we get of rescue is that God will keep us safe um, from deadly women. Look at verses 16 through 19. The adulterous woman has smooth words. This warning that we've just read is expanded on. For 3 chapters found in Proverbs 5 through 7. But I just want you to listen to the simplicity of what is told to us in verses 16 through 19. The words for sin of sexual immorality are seductive. You're being tempted to abandon the companion of your youth and ignore the marriage covenant that you've made with God. They are going to flatter you, making you feel good about yourself. But listen to the results. It says, her house sinks down to death. Her paths lead to the departed. No one who goes into her returns, and no one regains the path of life. Please, please hear these words. Committing adultery is the end of your life. Your life will be destroyed. The seductive temptation is that you can do this and uh, no one will ever find out. How do we suppose that no one is ever going to know? It it's always found out. You can only juggle, lies for so long. You can only explain your disappearances so often. You can only make excuses for why you are not at home so much. You're going to be found out. It's the end of your life as you know it. I know some people who have recently gone through this. Um, and bravely, he wrote publicly on social media about his experience as a warning for others to listen. He was confirming the word of the Lord. Her house sinks down to death. None who go to her come back. You are forever wrecked by this decision. You're forever changed by going down this road. Don't listen to the seductive words of adultery. Don't experience the destruction of sexual immorality that the Proverbs constantly say will happen to us. Listen to the wisdom that he gives later for our safety. In Proverbs 5, verses 15 through 23, it says, drink water from your own cistern, flowing water from your own well. Should your springs be scattered abroad, streams of water in the streets? Let them be for yourself alone and not for strangers with you. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice in the wife of your youth, a lovely deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast fill you at all times with delight. Be intoxicated always in her love. Why should you be intoxicated, my son, with a forbidden woman and embrace the bosom of an adulteress? For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare him, and he is held fast in the cords of his sin. He dies for lack of discipline, and because of his great folly, he is led astray. God's wisdom is keeping us safe from wreaking havoc on our lives. But we have to seek God's wisdom so our hearts will be transformed to walk away from the allure of evil men and women seducing us to sin. Um, Finally, let's look at verses 20 through 22. It says, for the upright will live in the land, and the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be uprooted from it. Finally, God says that you will be transformed so that you will be safe in his blessings. You will walk in the way of the good and keep the paths of the righteous. We'll be enabled to enjoy God's blessings. We will be able to enjoy the simple blessings God gives us each day. So why do we need to seek wisdom? Why is it so important to have wisdom for our lives? God is giving us some really important reasons, but here's the big idea. There are so many decisions that you can make in this life that will wreck your life. There are so many paths that you can take in life that will cause you more heartache and more pain than is necessary. There are so many people who are going to try and encourage you to do things that are wrong under the guise of those things being right and being pleasurable. God is trying to keep us safe. God is trying to keep us from self-inflicted wounds. God is trying to help us not destroy our lives. God is giving His wisdom so that we won't have our lives forever changed by the things that are worse in this life. God's offer, it's very simple. Pursue him and his wisdom, and he will give you a new life. He will keep you from so many painful experiences if you will receive his words, call out for his insights, and seek his ways like silver and hidden treasures. To say this another way, God has given his wisdom to keep you from derailing your life. If we will get serious about God and getting his wisdom, he can seriously transform our lives for his glory and for our good. That's it for this week's episode. As always, feel free to share your reflections, any questions, or even a favorite verse with our community. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay current on all of our available episodes. Um, until our next sharpening session, stay steadfast, stay inspired, and may your faith continue to grow sharper each day. This is the Iron Sharpens Iron Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Goad, and until next week, be blessed.